Our motivation for this work came from the rich relationships that faceted browsers, as shown here exploring and manipulating a dataset, are able to easily display. We wanted a way to allow relations in temporal data to be similarly exploited. To provide this flexibility, we needed to support nested hierarchical relationships. For example, how pieces relate to composers, and how those composers relate to era. We also support relationships across parts of a domain space. For example, how compositions by a certain composer relate to later recordings of that same composition. We also need to provide meaningful information at various levels of zoom of the temporal domain. For example, initially, only the most prominent composers are shown, with others minimized. The user can then choose to increase detail to show more composers. We'll now go through an overview and some of these features in more detail. The Overview panel, at the top, presents a histogram of the domain-focused data, in this case piece. We can add additional viewports to examine two different eras simultaneously. As we drag the viewports, the main detail panel changes accordingly. We can use the two viewports to examine piece and recording relationships between the two times. Minimized lines indicate composers that have not yet been expanded, and we can see who they are by hovering over them and expand if we wish to. Similarly, other entities can be closed. Open composers have a histogram of pieces, and we can look through the most prominent pieces and see which are displayed in the current view. The Dimension selector lists the facets in the hierarchy for the checkbox and slider. The checkbox selects whether we wish to display that facet or not, so, if we are only interested in pieces rather than composers and their pieces, we can uncheck composers. The sliders use a given metric to display more detail as they are moved to the right. If you are interested in composers rather than individual pieces, we drag the composers slider to the right, and the most prominent composers begin to appear and open up.